This afternoon, I will be your host as we briefly discuss the topic of inclusion in this Transformation of Community series. My name is Alex TD, and this is a look on the surface. When it comes to community, we think normally about a collection of individuals. And oftentimes there's an association to a community that is together for a reason or a purpose of some kind. However, this is not the inherent reality of a community. Community is simply a group of individuals who have something in common by the very location that they are in relation to one another. So to create a community is simply to have a collection of individuals, and that's it, full stop. Now, when it comes to inclusion, we must be wary or cognizant of the reason we wish to include others, whether that's a group, a Facebook community, an online community, a network, whatever the case may be. We must look at the reasons and the motivations behind why we wish to include others. If we're simply looking for a place to live, to sleep, to come home to at the end of the day, then a community could be as simple as a neighborhood or an apartment complex where there are simply people who are in the same location, but they're not necessarily interacting with one another. The tenants or the landlords or the property managers have made the decision to include those individuals into wherever they might be resting their heads at night. But these individuals are not necessarily engaging with one another. They're not necessarily interacting with a particular purpose. So again, why do we include? What is the purpose of inclusion? Inclusion recently seems to have derived into this politicalized term for any number of groups of individuals who have in one way, shape, or form been excluded. And being excluded is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to basic human rights, such as somewhere to live, a place to eat, somewhere to earn a living, this is where exclusion does become problematic. However, the extent to which exclusion has taken place seems to have overridden a number of the inherent benefits of being excluded from certain places or certain groups. For example, there are still these places today, but back in the day, there were clubs that were specifically geared for men, and whether it was some kind of social club for them to gather and smoke cigars, drink whiskey, find spirits, play club games with one another. In today's world, there's the politicized version of inclusion, which tries to make it so that those who would not otherwise be able to do such a thing or participate in such a location, social club, would thereby be included. This is most popularly seen with instances of male versus female locations. But the simple outlook and solution for something along these lines is simply, why would you want to be somewhere where you were not welcome to begin with? If I go to someone else's house and they ask me, "What are you doing here?" "Well, I see you have a house here. I would like to be included." That doesn't quite exactly make sense, does it? If they're telling me that they're going to call the cops if I don't leave, or if they tell me that I must leave after a certain time, why in God's blue and green earth would I wish to stay somewhere that I'm not welcome? I would much rather be somewhere where the faces are friendly. I would much rather be somewhere that it's okay for me to stay there if I wish. It's good that I've been excluded from that household, from that social club, or from the company of such individuals. So, where then can we find ourselves properly and adequately included? Well, looking back at our previous series in the transformation of self, coming to know oneself is the natural first step. And we can use what we've learned from the second series, transformation of relationships, to see how and with whom we can relate to. And as we move into this third series, the transformation of communities, we can begin to see our own motivations and our own reasons for who we wish to be around, who we are compatible with, who else is welcome in our company, and vice versa. If we wish to be inclusive, it's important to know who and why we are including others. While we may very well share similarities with others, it's not a given that it will continue to be that way. Oftentimes, while people share similarities with one another in terms of a purpose or an idea or a motivation of some kind, without truly knowing one's own motivations or truly taking the time to understand others as they are, it becomes very easy for a divergence in ideologies to take place. And this is often what creates some form of separation. So keep this in mind as you go forward in your life. This goes for the friends that we've made, the men and women that we partner in relationships with, be it romantic, marriage, for work, for volunteering or purpose. Truly coming to know others as they are without overlaying or assuming that our mental landscape and ideologies are the same as others. These are very critical components to transforming the way we look at and view our communities, our networks, our organizations, our corporations, our businesses, our friend groups, our families. If we are to include others, that is to say, to make them a part of, and in the simplest sense, to make others a part of our life, it's critical that we understand who someone else is. We can only understand others to the extent that we are capable of understanding ourselves. Sometimes others can help us to learn about ourselves. This is true. But when we begin moving from ourselves to a small partnership or a small group to now moving into a community, well, our ideas may be the very thing that creates exclusion. So I'll end here by emphasizing the point of how critical it is to understand ourselves, to understand others. Just because I have someone who shares a similar idea or a similar purpose as I do, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're compatible. It doesn't necessarily mean that our efforts will converge in one direction. Because our mental landscapes, while similar, may hold very different ideologies. And this is often the case when it comes to interacting and engaging with others. So do yourself and others a favor to avoid this disastrous divergence and take what time is available to you to be solid in the foundation of your own ideas, while also taking what time is available to you to create an understanding of others and their ideas the way that they see them. And then you just may very well find your unique recipe for who to include in your community, in your movement, in your network, in your organization, your businesses, and the likes. That will be all for now. I thank you all for your time. My name is Alex TD, and this has been A Look on the Surface.